introduction, Ms. Lessi James. What's your title and exactly who are you here at the Evergreen Valley College? What do you carry out?
I am the president and director of J.E.W.L Oral History Learning Institute and Museum. We combined them. We combined the Oral History Project with an extension with a museum and an institute because oral history comes with documents, and items, and books, and all kinds of things as you capture those oral histories. So we have an oral history institute and a museum together. So as a nonprofit, J.E.W.L is a nonprofit. So we collaborate with Evergreen College and with San Jose City College. We are on the campus, but we work as a collaborative effort.
So J.E.W.L is the pro. Could you give me
Yeah,
some?
J.E.W.L is a nonprofit that one of our projects is to record oral histories. And we've done it since the 1990s. And recording oral histories means similar to what you're doing. We go into people who have lived it. We don't just do one thing. We cover the whole historical thing with people who've lived it, first-hand knowledge. All right. So it could be the civil rights movement. It could be veterans. It could be doing science, African Americans who were the first in STEM. I mean, we talk about STEM, but we leave out the fact that African Americans, and we have that documented, collecting histories, and can show STEM is not new to African Americans. We were the first in to develop in those. So that's part of J.E.W.L.
You speak about the first, and this is kind of why we're here today. I'd like to ask, what period of time were you born and where?
I was born in the 40s, down deep in the South. I think about as deep as you can go, so they tell me. I was born in Arkansas and did a lot of my raising was in Mississippi. Philadelphia, Mississippi, no doubt, and that's very historical because of all the uprisings and the COFO workers and the 3 civil rights workers were killed there, and a whole lot of other things. Medgar Evers and Charles Evers are from there. So a lot of my home ground and growing up is from Philadelphia, Mississippi, and in Arkansas, and a little bit of Tennessee. My folks are from Mississippi and Tennessee and Arkansas, so I kind of lived in both coming up. And so I was born in the 40s, went to school, and before the 1964, okay, civil rights, I went to school segregated in the 60s in the South.
Oh my goodness,
Okay.
that must have been a tragic
That's
experience.
it-
Living through so much death and
Yes,
so much oppression and
Yes.
civil rights and legislation.
yes it was. If you're talking about, I didn't see a library until I came to California in the 60s. And I graduated high school in the 60s, back south. I went to college here in California, but I graduated high school in the South. But like I said,
Did your parents attend school? What I'm asking is, did your parents reach a higher level of education?
My parents didn't, but they could read. My dad was an evangelist minister, and he learned to read like a lot of people in his time learned to read from studying the Bible. So my dad, I think, was about 6th grade, but he learned to read, and he would have books from all over the country. He read a lot as an evangelist minister, and he would have books, and he insisted upon me learning how to read, me and my brothers, all right? But he did learn to read. First thing was the Bible, and he went from there.
What about your mother?
My mom was not highly educated either, because they came up and gee whiz, in a time when they barely could live,
I understand.
much less go to college. But I do have some college grads in my family, just not my parents. And my auntie taught school, but she was not a PhD. She taught school way back when I was a kid in the woods of Mississippi. My aunt didn't have a PhD, but she could write her own plays and her own speeches.
I would
And she
imagine they
taught
would have to make
school.
their own books, or how would they get
They did the best.
what would the curriculum be for? If I know that you can't go, but I just imagine the resources being limited.
Oh, limited. resources were limited in the 60s when I graduated. So back in the 50s and 40s, it was
absolutely
nil,
nothing.
especially in certain areas. Now, there was areas in the South where they had a little bit more than other areas in the South. Access to more material in some areas of the South than some of the other areas did, but it still was limited. Okay, as to what you could do. But there were still graduates and there were still people going to school when I was coming up, which is why, but I do have college, like I said, in the later years, college grads and high acclaimed musicians and that sort of thing. Yeah.
It was a lot during this 1964 period, so I'd like to ask, was there or can you remember a time when your parents or you stood up for civil rights or against those oppressions?
I've been standing up since I was in the 60s in high school. That's why my dad and my brothers decided to ship me out of Arkansas.
Can you tell me about one of those times?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
Thank
guess
you,
I will.
and I understand.
No,
it can be tragic reliving those. And if you want to take a minute to breathe with me, we can before
get it now.
Go ahead.
My dad did it in a different way as far as I think he did teach me, because I was the last one. My two brothers graduated and went to the military, and so I was left still there in the South. So I saw my dad do it in a way as far as not just forceful out there, but it got to me that that's what I needed to do. So when I graduated in the 60s from high school, I had decided, and my dad saw that. Me and some other of my classmates had decided we were not going to go spend no money at the back door. We don't care about band. We're not going to do that anymore. And we're not going to go and let somebody talk to us in a kind of way. We decided we'd get it. So my dad recognized, oh, Lord. And I decided that the insurance company, see, in those days, people who had your insurance policies, white folks of any kind, they just walk in your house. They didn't have to knock. And this was even in the 60s. They didn't have to knock. Just walk up at the door and come on in and sit down. And instead of knocking on the door saying hello or let me in or can I come in, it didn't happen. So I had decided the next time the insurance agent walked up to that door, he wasn't going to get in if he didn't knock. My daddy said, it's time for you to go to California. Wasn't that he was so afraid, I think, for himself, but he knew I could be walking down the street somewhere and they'd get me. So he and my brothers out here in California got together. Next thing I know, as soon as I said, give me that diploma from high school, they was get on the bus for 3 days to come to California. And I thought I didn't even get a chance to go out and tell these folks, I'm not spending no more money in your store. Yeah.
That was so much. The enlightenment. You were enlightened?
My dad,
when you decided you were enlightened, you said
not doing this no more. And so my dad said, and you going to California with your brothers. Now, I'm sure he knew that there was racism out here, too. He had to know that. And my brothers knew. They had been in the Navy, so when they got out of the Navy, they stayed in Oakland. And then they shipped me 3 days to California, getting me away from a situation they thought might take my life. And I come and get in school. I got into college.
What was it like driving or coming from the South to, sorry to interrupt, what was it like coming from the South to the, did you feel any culture shock? What was?
Well, it was a little different because when I came, I was expecting a little different as well, a little bit, at least a little different. And I got here to California and found worse than what I left because back there, I knew what they felt. I knew what they were saying and do. Here, they got that old hitting stuff, which makes it worse. And most people will tell you that's conscious. That's the worst type to deal with is that hitting stuff, that brotherly love stuff, and they'll lynch you tomorrow. That stuff is horrible. But that's the kind of enlightenment you get when you come and you see, okay, I'm going to a better place. I rode 3 days to get there, so it must be better. And I can do what I need to do. I get here and get into college, community college in Oakland. And what do I behold? My instructor, I thought I was really done made it because I was getting some African American history. I hadn't got it at home except Carter G. Woodson a little bit. And a little bit about this. 2 or 3 different people we studied. That's it. So I get here and get into college and think I made it. All right? So then I find out in school, in my African American history class, that the white professor was talking about he was being in Africa eating people along with the Africans, and the cannibalism, and they were eating, he was eating other black folks, and that the white meat was more tender than the black meat, and he was with the cannibals eating. And I went into some kind of shock because I thought, how are you with these black Africans eating somebody and they didn't eat you? So so it was a shock to say, no, wait a minute, isn't that the kind of stuff I just
left from?
I came to learn something, and you're telling me that you ate black folks and white, and where's white
Your
meat
own
come
instructor.
from? So in a way, so it was that same real shock was when the news was talking about the Klan. My brothers and I and his wife and family, we all sitting around and watching TV, and the Klan was marching, and they were talking about Tracy. So I didn't know much about it. I said, I asked my brothers, I said, my oldest one especially, I said, where is Tracy? He said, oh, it's just right over the hill. I said, that's it?
You just left the South.
I said, that's
and
right.
now here you are
That's
in
right.
California.
In California.
And right up the way, about an hour and a half from here from
all
San
dressed
Jose.
in the garbs, the
Yes.
capes and the hats and the thing.
And their station, they're supposed to be in Houston, Texas.
The
That's what I thought.
Grand Wizard, the whole bit was
Yes.
right over the hill. So I said, that's when people ask me in interviews, how did you get like you are? And I thought, what does that mean? Well, how did you get so into social justice and fighting all the time? I said, well, when I came to California, it took me 3 days, so I figured I know where it's for me to go. So I might as well start fighting back, right? Where am I? 3 days to get here, and I came to the Klan.
Break out some terminology, because you were discussing how difficult it is when you're coming from the South and coming to any different zone, the type of literature, how it's worse, as you explained, in the Southern. So I'm going to bring this term up. Have you ever heard, or do you know about intersectionality?
I've heard of it. Haven't spent a lot of time on it, but I know of it and where it came from and all the ins and outs of it, and I don't criticize it. It's just that I don't see. I in all the years that my work with history collecting and with social justice, I'm always was kept on the level of make sure everybody understands what you say. Talk in the terms of clarity. So there's no misunderstanding about your message you're trying to get across. So this is why I said I've heard of it, I know of it, I've read a little bit of it, and I don't criticize it. It's just that we all have our path and how we try to get knowledge over to people. And mine has always been what I was taught.
I'm going to read the definition. Intersectionality. The concept of intersectionality describes the ways in which system of inequality based on gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, class, and other forms of discrimination intersect to create unique and dynamic effects. So it's like coming to a road, a crossway in the road, and dealing with whatever is coming from in any direction. How do you feel about that? And is that something that that you feel like you encounter on a day-to-day basis, or
I see
maybe
it.
in the piece?
I see it because of the problems with each one of those. There are issues and inequalities in all of those areas, where there's race and where there's gender, where there's sexuality. There are issues in all of those areas from what I see today. Yes, so as an example, you see the racism that's affecting, and I just stick with African Americans and other cultures too that are called protected. But when you see, example, Baldwin was one, but Baldwin didn't get, I don't think, as criticized as much as the other one about who they were, because most people didn't know he was gay. But when they found out, even Dr. King them had to make a decision as to whether or not to keep him out front because of the criticism. They already had enough criticism going on, being black and trying to get some rights. Now to have a gay person up front with us, that's like more detrimental. That's more criticism.
So in the crossroads, he's black, he's gay,
yes, Lord.
he's fighting for right and
Oh, so there's three things against him right there. All right, and a black male. Can't leave that one out. Black male.
and male. And
All
he's
right.
a male.
Yeah, all right. Even though he was gay, he still was a black male. All right, and he very very smart. Was part of the nonviolence developing. All right. All right, I'll tell you.
Okay, for the interview, please let everyone know who you were talking about, Miss J.
All right. How come you can't come back and do it? All right, Bayard Wrestling, because he's all in my brochures anyway. Bayard Wrestling, give me an example because you asked me as to the history that's presented on him. It's that because he helped develop the March on Washington with Dr. King now. And he was one of the ones who helped teach the nonviolence philosophy that they lived. And he was very strong in helping the civil rights workers who were jailed and to maintain and be able to take that stress. But as soon as it leaked out that he was gay, he already had the trouble of being a black male, all right, and as an organizer and very smart. Then the gay part came out. Then they had to kind of step back and say, oh, wait a minute, now they're going to get away from what we're trying to do for civil rights and just focus on and put us down and because of his preferences. Okay? So that so when you look at it that way, that intersectional thing, it does. Yeah. Because you see him, here's a man who's trying to do right, and because of and he's got another fight to fight now. So, and that's because of the sexuality. So I assume, and I've always thought that fit in as an example.
Definitely. And then sectionality, yes. Sexual orientation,
yes.
Disability,
yes.
Race.
Yes.
Definitely. When I think about intersectionality, I see all the positions that happens, but mainly I think about the road that the person came down.
Yes.
And I think psychologists do the same thing. They want, well, what happened with the parents? Where were the parents at? And it's difficult to cut those ties. And I actually had class with one of the students here who knew that her parents were racist, wanted to change, but I can see it. She was suffering for it, and that's just, it's wrong, you know. Now that I see it in this light, and I'll ask you as well. But I could see it being weaponized. That's what it sounds like.
Well, now how do you mean weaponized?
As soon as one thing is beneficial, it's then used against you.
There you go. Good analysis. Because that's what communist people weren't the ones that we know about. We don't know about that bunch that was over there. If there was somebody trying to take over the country, we don't know about those. What we know about are those people who said, this is how we're going to fight this system. You know, we are fighting this system. We don't know what was in their minds doing anything else, but we know that some of them, it's like Dr. Abthaker when he said he joined, and they accused Paul Robeson of being one. These were strong people. Yes. And if they can deter you from listening to them, what does that mean? You're losing. You lose somebody who's strong enough to fight, who know the system, who know how to fight. You lose. You ain't gonna go get with him when you should have been sitting there at him every day. Okay? So those are the communism and the homosexuality, you know, and the fact why you think so many military folks, they swore up and down we couldn't do battle. Black folks don't know how to do it, and battling every day. Okay? So battling every day. So it's so when you're talking about intersectionality and examples that from what I've looked at it and gather, and the way for me to explain it is to give examples like that, because you got so many writers writing, you know, and throwing in words, and words can get you all off the track sometimes. Right. So I try to keep that. Like I said, I don't knock it or criticize that terminology at all. It's just finding ways when I'm talking to people that they make sure that they try to understand it.